What's up, everybody? Big Herc 916, and you're tuned in to another edition of my vlog. I want to say thank you for subscribing to my channel. Thanks for the support. You know, I'm all about that positivity and that motivation. And, you know, a lot of people want to glamorize prison like it's some hell of a place where it makes you a man. You know, you get all these stripes for stabbing somebody or getting a tattoo or putting in work or listening to a dope fiend call shots for you. A drug addict telling you to go take care of business because they want to continue to get high. Yeah, most of the people in there calling shots are hooked on heroin. They're drug addicts. They're not people you'd want to ever associate with on the street because they'd rob you and probably do some harm to your family, but yet they're in prison and they're dictating policy for different cliques, different races. But there's nothing to be glorified in any of that bull. There's nothing worth even entertaining in there on a voluntary basis. And people want to talk about, yeah, you know, I was in there doing this and doing that, and you know, I was this hell of a person. Well, for one thing, if you stab somebody in prison, then you had contraband, you're going to get charged. And you could be charged with an attempted murder and get additional time or get life. So when you talk about what makes a man and dealing with prison, it ain't stabbing somebody, and it ain't being taken away from your family longer than you have to for making the mistake you made in the first place. So when people brag about that and act like it's something to be proud of, I just laugh at them. Because if you were really all that, you should have been putting in work on the street, taking care of business, and outsmarting the popos to begin with. And what I mean by outsmarting them is knowing about the legal system and paying attention to the people you kept company with. Because if you would have paid better attention to that, you wouldn't have ended up in the prison to begin with. And I'm a prime example of that. I was associating with some people who were low lifes, people who weren't about shit, and I entertained things and did a lot of things that weren't forthright. Therefore, I had to pay the consequences. I make no excuses. I don't try to say the sob story or act for pity from anybody. I did my time. I learned. I educated myself, and I try to put myself around the smartest people possible while in prison. I wasn't trying to hang out with people just because of, you know, a particular demographic or race. I wasn't sitting around busting spreads with a bunch of poo butts talking about war stories. No, I try to get around the smartest individuals I could and learn from them. And that was my ultimate goal, was to learn. It didn't matter if you were white, it didn't matter if you were Asian, it didn't matter if you were Hawaiian, black, mixed race. I was trying to get the game. And that's what I did. You know, so my story's not all about, yeah, I was calling shots or doing this. No, my story's about how I educated myself so that when I got out, I could make the right moves and be somebody that was productive. And everybody wants to talk about who runs what yard and who runs what prison. Well, to be real, the warden and his staff run the prison. The lieutenant, the sergeant, the lieutenant will come up in there, or the captain with his goons, and they will bust your head. They run the prison. You think the inmates run the prison? They let the inmates do what they need them to do to keep the prison running, but they're the ones who control everything that happens in prison. They got snitches everywhere. There was no drugs on the yard. There's no weapons being made without them knowing about it, man. Come on. You're talking about a facility that is governed by a couple hundred people controlling a couple thousand people. You think they don't know what's happening? You think there ain't somebody in there trading information for cigarettes or for drugs? You gotta be stupid. I know when I was in the USP at Lompoc, they you damn sure knew that somebody was up in there making shanks. And as long as it didn't get out of control, they let that go on, and the person was in there slinging the shanks. And as far as the dope, they knew who was selling the dope because people were getting kickbacks. It's a business, man, all the way around the board. Whether they're getting paid by the federal government to work in these facilities, or they're getting paid by the inmates, but ultimately they run the prison. There's been instances where, if they want to get at somebody, they could pop your cell door and let some other cats run up in there and try to put in work on you. It's happened. I had a homie. He went out to do some wreck. He was on lockdown, and he was in the hole. And they put him in. They opened up the wreck cage, and inside the cage was a couple other cats that he was beefing with. And they took the cuffs off him, and they put him up in there to go do his exercises, and they want to see if his reputation held up to his name. And sure enough, it did. The homie was a motherfucking animal. And he put in work on those cats up in there and let them know what time it was. And afterwards, the guards were like, well, you are who they say you are. We were wondering why you were so high-powered. But it goes down. And is it legal? You're in prison, man. What you talking about legal? They could do what the hell they want to do in there. They can lock you down for 9 months, 10 months, 12 months, a year straight and slide your everything through a slot. You think they give a damn? You think they give a damn if you're sick? Ain't no medical. When they got a lockdown, it's a lockdown, man. And if they want to get you lost in the system, all they gotta do is put you on one of those buses and have you bust all over the country. You'll hit every single stop along the way in places you never thought you'd be. Wear your ass out, shackled from the ankles to the wrist. And to glorify any of that, you gotta be one of the dumbest people breathing to think that any of that was cool. I say it's all garbage. I tell people that, man, you don't want to go. Be smarter than that. Don't get caught up in there and letting somebody dictate to you your policies. Somebody telling you what to do as far as politics. Man, do you up in there, man. If you have to do it, get the hell up out of there and educate yourself. Get around some smart people. There's a lot of smart people in there that are doing time that just caught a bad break, but they're very knowledgeable. Get around those people. And the staff will recognize that you're trying to do something better with yourself. And a lot of times, you can stay out the way if you know how to navigate. And they ain't considered being soft. You're not being a punk if you ain't running around, putting in work. And of course, if shit jumps off and it involves certain races, you might have to participate because there is no, sideline work. So there are exceptions to the rule where you mind your business. There's certain situations call for you to have to put down a demo, because if you don't put down that demo, you're gonna get your wig split. But overall, man, prison ain't nothing to be glorified. And I'm more impressed with these square bears out here. These cats out here, pushing Bugattis, traveling the world, sending their kids to private school, taking care of business, owning multiple corporations. I'm more impressed with those guys. Those guys are the ones who you guys should really be looking up to as far as if you're trying to be something in life. Not some little punk that can't even spell dictionary, who doesn't know anything about your civil rights, or just your basic your basic rules that govern life. Why even bother to entertain people like that? It's sad because a lot of people weren't taught certain things at a certain age, so they learn them from the street. And the streets have a way of misleading a lot of people. A lot of people get lost in the streets trying to follow false prophets. And I'm here to tell you, man, that a lot of that, what you hear, a lot of this garbage that you hear people rapping about and talking high-powered about, man, it's all lies, man. It's all lies. The hardest people are telling in prison. The hardest people, man, you got dudes who are already doing, 10, 15, and they get pulled up on some other shit, conspiracy up in there. If they're involved in drugs, they're going to start telling. I'm telling you, man, you can't trust nobody up in there. So why even put yourself in a situation where you can get told on? Stay the hell up out of there. Focus on educating yourself, learning a trade, starting a business, doing stuff with your kids so that they can get a better opportunity than you had. If you've been to prison, you made a mistake, man, well, your kids ain't got to go there. So if you could be a father in their life, then that's the best thing you can give them so that they don't go through what you went through. But I would never wish this on my children, anyone else's children. And I tell people all the time, man, you ask me all these questions and I try to answer as many as possible on Fresh Out. And on Big Herc 916, I try to stay all about positivity, motivation. But sometimes I feel like I just got to touch on that because, people don't know about my background. And, they assume that because they hear certain things from other people that it sounds so cool. This guy, he looks like this and that. On the street, man, that shit don't mean nothing, man. Don't nobody on the street who has any type of sense that is really about anything of a higher spirituality want to be associated with somebody who stabs people. Don't nobody want to be around that, man. Don't nobody, unless you're some highly decorated soldier and you're a mercenary, you work for Blackwater or somebody, then don't nobody give a damn. Because if you were in prison doing this stuff, they think you as a savage. Yeah, they might have smiled in your face, but behind closed doors, they wouldn't want you near their daughter or their son. So don't follow the wrong people. Don't follow false prophets. Don't entertain things that you think are cool. Entertain things that are going to make you a better person. And listen to the message. If there's a good message there, then hey, I'm all for it. If that person has learned from their mistake. But when you hear people trying to brag about stuff or say things that make it sound like it made them something, well, if they became a better person, then maybe it's somewhat worth entertaining. But for the most part, man, you could become that same person without going to prison. You don't need to go to prison and get a bunch of tattoos or hang out with some racial group or some gang group to be somebody of status. You're born with status. When you come out the womb, you have status. It's just a matter of what your parents cultivate you to do from that point on. But prison doesn't give you status, man. Prison's a horrible place. And I've been to every facet. I've been to juvenile hall. I've been to California Youth Authority, which is like a junior prison. Been to fire camp. Been to the feds. Been to USP. And I've talked to some of the most gangsterous people. Not necessarily people who just raped and pillaged and killed. I'm talking about people who are straight gangsters. People who are mobbed up and they'll tell you, man, that it's not what it's cracked out to be, and life has so much more to offer. And most of these people are sending their kids to private schools and trying to keep them out the game rather than following their footsteps. But think about it. A real gangster is keeping his kids out of the way. He ain't trying to have them in there next to them. And I've seen families in prison, father and son, brothers, and it's sad, man. So yeah, don't get caught up in the hype, man, and watch out for the false prophets. Stay true to yourself, stay true to the people that love you, and be smarter in your choices. Big Herc 916. Holla.